have heard of a land on a faraway strand. In the Bible the story is told, where cares never come, never darkness nor gloom, and nothing shall ever grow old. In that beautiful land on the faraway strand, no storms with their blast ever frown. The street, I am told, is paved with pure gold, and the sun it shall never go down. There are evergreen trees that been blowing in the breeze, and their fruitage is brighter than gold. There the throne of God stands in the fairest of lands, and nothing shall ever grow old. In that beautiful land on the faraway strand, no storms with their blast ever frown. The street, I am told, is paved with pure gold, and the sun it shall never go down. There's a home in that land at the Father's right hand. There are mansions whose joys are untold, and perennial.
Bibles, please turn to the book of Proverbs and follow along with me on the 14th this past week. Proverbs chapter 1 was among the readings that day. The end of this chapter, starting in verse 32, says, "For the waywardness of the naive shall kill them, and the complacency of fools shall destroy them. But he who listens to me shall live securely, and shall be at ease from the dread of evil." That captures the theme and the purpose of the book of Proverbs as much as anything. This book is given to us so that we might live securely, so that we might be able to live discerning lives and understand and discern between that which is true and that which is not true. And this opening chapter of this book talks about some things that are extremely important. Now, I've taught from this chapter before, but I'm going to approach it from a slightly different angle. And I say slightly, it's going to be slightly, but there is something interesting that I want to focus on in the middle part of this chapter. The first 7 verses are simply setting out the purpose and the theme. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to discern the sayings of understanding, to receive instruction in wise behavior, righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the naive. I like the language of verse 4 a lot. The naive are just people that are not knowledgeable, that are not experienced, that are not aware of things. The purpose of the writings is to give prudence to them, to give them an awareness and an ability to discern, to judge, to have foresight about things and to recognize things so they don't continue to live as naive and to be beguiled by things that otherwise they ought not be, to give prudence to the naive, to the youth, knowledge and discretion, the information and the ability, therefore, through that information to make wise choices, which is what discretion is. Then he says, a wise man will hear and increase in learning. And so the principles of the book of Proverbs aren't just for the naive and the young, but the wise can also learn and grow in knowledge as a result of these things, so that a wise man will hear and increase in learning, and a man of understanding will acquire wise counsel. And then he says to understand a proverb and a figure, the words of the wise and their riddles. And then verse 7 is, I guess, the theme statement. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. The ability to respect God is where all knowledge arises from. If a man can't have respect for his Creator, he will never truly possess knowledge, understanding, or wisdom. And yet that is what we all long for. Billions upon billions of dollars are spent in this country alone seeking knowledge and understanding and wisdom. Through books and through universities and schools and all sorts of, we're all craving knowledge and understanding. And this says, look, if you don't start off by respecting your Creator, you're never going to get there. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. And it's just simply foolish to despise the instruction and wisdom that comes from Him. Now, the second part, and this is where I'm going to spend the bulk of my time, now say is about competing voices. I didn't used to talk about this section in that way, but that's what's actually going on from verses 8 through 19, is there's a discussion going on about the fact that we don't go through this world and only hear one voice, or even hear more than one person echoing a single voice. It would be easy to be a parent if the only voice that our children ever heard and was influenced by was the voice of God, being echoed by me and the wife, and that's all that they heard. The problem is there are other voices. And so listen to what he says. Hear, my son, your father's instruction. Do not forsake your mother's teaching. Indeed, they're like a graceful wreath to your head and ornaments about your neck. And if that's where it stopped, then life would be easy. We would hear the words of God. We would hear the advice of our father. We would hear the advice of our mother. We would take those teachings to heart. We would live based upon them. They have our best interest at heart. They love us. They care for us. They're only trying to do what's right for us, even though we go through a period of time where we don't see that. We want to exercise our own will, and when it's counter to our will, what they say, we don't see that as them having our interest at heart. But that's really what is at the motive in most cases. And we would have these ornaments about our necks. We would have these wreaths about our head. Life would be wonderful. Children would grow up knowing what they needed to know, and there would be no problems, except there is verse 10. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. See, the voices of God and mother and father are not the only voices out there. There are the voices of the sinners who are seeking to entice you to do things contrary to wisdom. The warning is don't consent. In other words, don't listen to them. Don't agree with them. Don't decide to walk with them. But the whole challenge is this. Which voices are which? Who has my interest at heart? Who's telling me the good things and who's telling me the things that are not good? Who's trying to draw me to the knowledge of God and who's trying to entice me to sin? That's as old as mankind on the earth. That's the same exact challenge that was taking place in the garden between Eve, and here it is, I told you I'd get it in, lying Lucifer. That's the challenge. Eve was hearing the voice of God and the voice of the serpent. Which one is telling me the truth? Adam was hearing the voice of his wife and the voice of God. Which one is telling me the truth? After all, my wife came to me as a gift from God to be a help to me. And I don't know if you notice it or not, but that's actually part of Adam's argument later when he's challenged by God about his sin. He says, it's the woman that you gave me. She gave me of the fruit. In other words, you gave me a helpmeet, and the help that I got was to eat this fruit. What voice do I listen to? Who really has my interest at heart? That's the age-old challenge that we always have, because there have always been competing voices that are seeking to convince us of what is good and what is right and what we should do. How do I know? Well, that's the purpose of this. So that you can discern the sayings of understanding, he said in verse 2. So that you can receive instruction in wise behavior. So that you can have prudence and knowledge and discretion. So these sinners, he says, entice you. If they say, come with us, let us lie in wait for blood, let us ambush the innocent without cause, let us swallow them alive like Sheol, even whole as those who go down to the pit, we shall find all kinds of precious wealth. See, there's benefit to this. We can go do these things. And in the end, we're going to find all kind of precious wealth. Again, this is the same type of thing that the serpent did with Eve, right? Eat this fruit. No, God said not to eat that fruit. Well, yeah, but that's because he knows it's going to make you wise, and he doesn't want you to be wise. He doesn't want you to have wisdom and knowledge and understanding. He doesn't have your best interest at heart. When she looked upon it, she saw that it was desirable to make one wise, that it was good for food, that it was a delight to the eyes. Every time I read that line in Genesis, I think of the recurring theme through the Lord of the Rings, where the gleam of the ring. They start calling the ring precious. And that's the draw. She saw that it was a delight to the eyes. Here's all this stuff. We recognize it immediately as bad stuff, right? Lie in wait for blood. That can't be good. Ambush the innocent. That can't be good. Swallow them alive like death. That can't be good. But we shall find all kinds of precious wealth. Well, wait a minute. That may be good. See, that's what these voices are doing. Taking this stuff that is very evidently bad and presenting them as having a good outcome. We shall fill our houses with spoil. Throw in your lot with us. We shall have one purse. Do not walk in the way with them. That's the warning of verse 15. Don't let the enticement find its place in your heart. Don't buy the line that they're feeding you. If the worm has a silver rod going through it and a nylon line attached to it, it's bait, not food. That's what he's saying. Don't walk in the way with them. Keep your feet from their path. Their feet run to evil. They hasten to shed blood. Indeed, it's useless to spread the net in the eyes of any bird, but they lie in wait for their own blood. They ambush their own lives. Now, do you see what the writer has done here? He's taken their very arguments about what they should do to others, to lie in wait, to ambush the innocent, to lie in wait for their blood. He says what they've actually done is they're ambushing themselves. They just don't know it. So are the ways of everyone who gains by violence. That's the way of the world, by the way, to gain by violence. To just assert yourself and take what you believe is rightfully yours. Go to war. Fight your battle. Take your job. Take your accolades. Take your raise. Take what you deserve. That's what the world is teaching us, to go out and take what I deserve. That's the way of the world, gaining by violence. But he says it takes away the life of its possessors. Sure enough, he doesn't say that you're not going to gain. He doesn't say that the treasures are not going to be there. He doesn't say that you're not going to get precious wealth. He doesn't say that you're not going to get recognition. You're not going to get the job. You're not going to get the control you're after. You're not going to get any of those things that you are using your power to get. He simply says that all of those things that you get are actually going to take your life away. That's exactly what the rich man in Luke 16 learned as well, right? That his fine clothes and his great house and his sumptuous food, it did nothing for his soul. His treatment of Lazarus didn't help his soul, but if he showed compassion to Lazarus, had he been a good man and shared what he had with those who had need, that may have preserved his soul. But see, that's not what sinners are enticing you to do. They're not saying, hey, share the wealth. Care about people, help people out, lift people up. They're saying, take what is yours. He says, don't listen to that. Because in the end, what you possess is taking your life. The part of life that's really important. He moves on from there and says something very interesting. And I say it's very interesting because I had a conversation just Saturday morning with a fella, and he made the comment that people don't like to hear the truth. And then he said, because truth is hidden. That was his word. But what's interesting here is the word of God right here in this place says that the last half of what he said simply isn't true. The truth isn't hidden. Instead, it's shouting. Wisdom shouts in the street. It's not in a corner of a room behind a bed, in the inner room of the house or the basement. It's not hidden on the rooftop or in the attic or behind a curtain or a veil. No, it's in the street. And it's not whispering. It's shouting. Wisdom shouts in the street. When I don't pick up the precepts of wisdom, do you want to know something? It is not somebody else's fault. It's not God's fault for not speaking wisdom. He did that. It's not my parents' fault for not teaching me. It's not my neighbor's fault for not teaching me. It's not the world's fault for not teaching me. It's not my school. Wisdom is shouting in the streets. Proverbs 1 is saying it's my job to discern the voices, to figure out who's speaking wisdom and who's leading me into sin. Wisdom shouts in the street. She lifts her voice in the square. At the head of the noisy streets, she cries out. You know why the streets are noisy? Because there's a whole lot of sinners out there trying to entice you as well. There's a lot of jabbering going on. And she's standing there in the center of the square shouting. All I have to do is listen. I have to recognize which voice to listen to. That's actually what the warning here is all about. She shouts in the street. She lifts her voice in the square. At the head of the noisy street, she cries out. At the entrance of the gates of the city, she utters her sayings. Isn't hard to find. She's right there in the most public of public places, shouting at the top of her lungs. How long, O naive ones, will you love simplicity? Scoffers delight themselves in scoffing, and fools hate knowledge. Turn to my reproof. Behold, I'll pour out my spirit on you. By the way, you might recognize echoes of that line throughout all of the prophets. I will pour out my spirit upon you. You might recognize that it's picked up again in the New Testament. I will pour out my spirit on you. You might recognize that it's carried through many of the epistles. I will pour out my spirit on you. Wisdom is there. Wisdom is available. God has made it available. God has poured it out to us and effectively carried it to us and led us to it. I will pour out my spirit on you. I will make my words known to you. Because I called and you refused, I stretched out my hand and no one paid attention. You neglected all my counsel. You did not want my reproof. I will laugh at your calamity. Now, I want to say something here. The Bible's pretty clear that God takes no pleasure in the death of the wicked. That's not the point that's being made here. This is hyperbole. The point is this: we have a lifetime to listen. We have the opportunity to discern the voices and to know what God has said. And when we face our judgment, it isn't God's fault. I will laugh at your calamity. I'll mock when your dread comes like a storm and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you, then they will call on me. By the way, again, here's another image from this chapter that's very similar to Luke 16. When did the rich man call upon the Lord? When he became aware of himself in torment. That's when he called upon the Lord. Give me some relief. Nope, it's too late for that. You had your opportunity. For far too many people, the end of this chapter is about the way that they live their life. They don't listen to wisdom. They ignore it. They listen to the other voices. They live the way that they want to live. And then when it's too late, then they try to call upon the Lord. But he says, I will not answer. At any time, we can call upon the Lord now, and he'll answer. Call upon the Lord while he may be found. Maybe that gives new weight to that admonition of Scripture. Then they will call upon me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but they shall not find me, because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. That's where all this started, right? Back in verse 7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. The minute I decided to reject God and his authority, knowledge was not approachable. Recognizing the voice of wisdom was impossible. That's why Paul writes in 1 Corinthians about the people, the natural man who can't understand the things of God. Because they did not choose the fear of the Lord, they would not accept my counsel. That's what it says here. They spurned all my reproof, so they shall eat of the fruit of their own way and be satiated with their own devices. The waywardness of the naive shall kill them, and the complacency of fools shall destroy them. But, and that's where I started tonight, he who listens to me shall live securely. And so there's our challenge. Our challenge is to discern the voices. There's lots of voices in the world. People crying out, I have the answers, I have the knowledge, I can help you, follow me, let's do this together, I'm there with you. Lots of people echoing the voices of many, many things. You know what the question is? Which ones are from God? Well, wisdom's at the city gates crying at the top of her voice. All I have to do, choose to fear the Lord. Seek him, search for his knowledge and wisdom. He says, I will pour out my spirit and you will find it. You will know it. When you search for me and for my voice, you'll know my voice. And when you reject me, then you can't hear my voice. And that's a terrifying thing, and that's what we have to all strive to do. The rest of this book goes on to break down in detail these things. I can't preach on the whole book of Proverbs. The last time I tried to teach it, it took me 2.5 years, and I didn't finish it. So there's a lot of meat there. So I encourage you in the weeks ahead as we read through this book to take those things very seriously and to think about them very carefully, because they are training us to be able to discern the voice of God from the noise of the world. And if there's someone here who has been influenced by the noise of the world and they are tired of it, Jesus invites them to come take my yoke upon you and learn of me, and you'll find rest for your souls. If we can help you in regard to that, let it be known as we stand and sing.
I have heard of a land on a faraway strand. In the Bible the story is told, where cares never come, never darkness nor gloom, and nothing shall ever grow old. In that beautiful land on the faraway strand, no storms with their blast ever frown. The street, I am told, is paved with pure gold, and the sun, it shall never go down. There are evergreen trees that been blowing in the breeze, and their fruitage is brighter than gold. There the throne of God stands in the fairest of lands, and nothing shall ever grow old. In that beautiful land on the faraway strand, no storms with their blast